So I started Tales of Berseria a few nights ago. I bought the game some time ago when it was on sale, and I'm just now getting around to playing it. Now I know nothing about the Tales series, so I didn't know what to expect going in, aside from the fact that it's the prequel to Zestiria, which seems to have mixed reception at best. I'm about 3 hours in, and I feel like I've completed a substantial amount of the first major town, and I do like the game so far. Since I've covered so little of it, this video will just mostly be me summarizing what's been going on up until the end of Helavis. The story starts off with a very grim kind of tone. There's this blood red moon, the place is on fire, people are fighting and turning into demons, the place is just a total madhouse. The scene then cuts to 3 people who appear to be running from the mayhem. Arthur, who's the oldest of the group, and 2 children, Velvet, the main character, and her little brother Laphicet. Arthur tells the 2 children to wait while he goes to retrieve Celica, his wife, and also the 2 children's older sister. Shortly after Arthur runs off, the 2 children soon hear a scream that seems to belong to Celica. They look and they find a large pillar of light emerging from the direction that Arthur went in, but they don't have much time to dwell on this as somebody nearby ends up transforming into a demon and begins to chase them. Velvet and Laphicet take flight and they soon run into Arthur. The image of a human body floating in the sky, impaled by 2 blades of light, flashes before the screen. Velvet, now much older, wakes up in what appears to be a prison cell. A demon is placed into the cell and Velvet just beats the ever-loving stuffing out of this thing before taking her demonic-looking left hand and absorbing it. She then starts talking about how the world is changing, but the only thing she cares about is the taste of blood-soaked flesh, implying that she didn't absorb the werewolf, she straight up ate it, and revenge. And then the game just does this complete 180. Velvet is taking care of her sick brother, she has a smile on her face.
Wait, what?
She's all cheerful and high-pitched, and I was like, what happened? Because this looks like a completely different character. Where's edgy demon werewolf eating Velvet? Where is she? What happened? Anyway, Velvet and Laphicet both live with Arthur, and Arthur is apparently this great exorcist and is the only one who can take on the demons at the moment. Velvet is his student, but she's not quite on his level, but it's still clear that she looks up to him.
Arthur's first maxim: plans must be solid and reactions flexible.
I do like how colorful the village was, and all of the voice-acted conversations so far do feel very natural. Some of them even evoked a chuckle or two out of me.
Ooh, this cold is beyond ordinary. Well, Helavis is a northern country, but still, it wasn't this cold when I was a kid. The cold, snow, and ice were never this bad. I know it for a fact. It's that, what do they call it again?
Global cooling?
Yeah. That's the one. The Abbey says the world's getting colder. Thanks to all this cold, I need more warm clothing. Worse, I have to shovel snow and chop firewood all day. Who's responsible for this global cooling? Let me at 'em.
Well, don't look at me. It's not my fault.
Anyway, Velvet spends the next couple of days gathering food and medicine for Laphicet. This is also where the game shows you the basics of combat, but I'll get more into that later since it's definitely something they kind of ease you into. For now, just know that you're given something called the Soul Gauge. Each character usually starts with 3 and it's basically your stamina. Arts, which are your means of attacking, use up stamina, and when they run out, you become vulnerable. You're not totally helpless since you can still attack, but it's much easier for enemies to break out of your combos and you can't defend without getting knocked back. And bear in mind that enemies and bosses also have souls, so I'm assuming this means they adhere to the same rules as well. On Celica's Memorial Day, things mostly go as they normally do, until later that night when Velvet awakens to the same red moon shown in the opening cutscene. I should mention that these events are called Scarlet Nights, so basically everyone has like these negative emotions, and in the game it's called Demon Blight. On Scarlet Nights, the darkness in people's hearts are amplified, and this is what causes them to turn into demons. Anyway, Velvet notices that Arthur and Laphicet are both missing and goes looking for them. She soon finds them, but is in for a nasty surprise when she learns that in an attempt to obtain the necessary power to subdue the demons, Arthur intends to take Laphicet's life, and I'm assuming something similar was done with Celica years ago. Laphicet is killed, and Velvet attempts to save his body in the middle of the ritual. They both end up falling into the large hole in the ground, and 2 beams of light, shaped like dragons, consume Laphicet's body. Velvet somehow gets launched back to the top, and she looks the same. Mostly. By now, some werewolves have wandered within the vicinity and Velvet kills them all. Hey, fun fact, it turns out most of them were the villagers that you became so well acquainted with a while ago. He then summons his Malakim, Ceres, who subdues Velvet with almost no effort. Shortly before Velvet gets locked up, you can hear her scream Arthur's full name. Artorias. And that, my young children, is the story of how Velvet went from a bubbly older sister to a brooding avenger in the span of a few hours. I do like how morally ambiguous Velvet and some of the other characters who you meet later in the game are. Most everyone so far has come from a rather shady background, which is definitely a nice change of pace from the normal good versus evil trope. The vibes I'm getting from this is more of a evil versus hidden evil kind of thing. Velvet is imprisoned on an island along with many other criminals and demons. Don't worry, they throw in a demon every now and then for her to devour, so it's not like she goes hungry. Anyway, this goes on for about 3 years. Then one day, Saris, out of nowhere, sneaks into the prison and enters Velvet's cell. After testing her strength, Saris explains that a lot has changed since the last Scarlet Knight. First of all, she's no longer serving as Arthur's Malachim. They haven't fully explained her reasons for turning on him, but something tells me she didn't exactly leave Arthur a resignation letter 2 weeks before. Secondly, after sacrificing Laphicet, many more exorcists now roam the world. I'm wondering if Arthur sacrificing Laphicet to obtain the power to save the world simply granted him the means to teach other people his arts. Regardless, there's basically a whole squadron of them now, and Arthur leads the Abbey, which is basically the cream of the crop. The guys who are the top rank, basically. As you can imagine, Arthur is now seen as this grand savior. The people love him. Nobody except Velvet and Saris truly knows what transpired that night. Anyway, Velvet and Saris make their way through the prison. They free most of the other prisoners and use them as a diversion so that they can escape. They eventually run into an exorcist named Oscar, making this your first encounter with one besides Arthur. After a brief exchange of blows, Oscar is all like, wow, these guys are tough. Let me turn one of my own Malachim into a demon to help me rid the world of demons, because that totally doesn't make me look like a hypocrite. Saris gets fatally wounded and begs Velvet to eat her and get the boost she needs to slay the dragon, which she does. Two of the prisoners, a part demon swordsman named Rokuro and a witch named Magilu, both of whom she met earlier, board a ship with Velvet and they sail off to find Artorias, despite having no proper navigator and leaving in the middle of a fierce storm.
So it's rot in a jail cell or rot in a fish tummy? Well, guess it's your lucky day, fishies!
They end up shipwrecking, to nobody's surprise, and they make it to the town of Helavis. They need someone to repair their ship, but unfortunately Helavis is in some hot water with the Abbey at the moment. Get it? It's funny because the place is cold and they're in hot water. Forget it. You see some guys who I assume to be sailors arguing with Teresa, a member of the Abbey. This is also your first glimpse of how much people actually look up to the Abbey. Like seriously, some of these guys borderline worship these people. It's actually kind of disturbing. But it does make sense if you consider what's transpired in the game so far.
You don't have to worry about getting attacked by demons while you're here in Helavis. This town is under the protection of the Abbey Praetor, Lady Teresa Linares. She keeps us all safe.
Wow, she must really be something else.
She is. She's lauded as the frozen queen of the exorcists. She's as cool as ice and as pure and dazzling as freshly fallen snow. She's just the white knight Helavis needs. Our town is as beautiful and pristine as it is because we have Lady Teresa here with us. Anyone who disturbs her order, whether human or demon, will be frozen by her wrath, soul and all.
Sounds just like an exorcist.
The way she glares at the filthy. Oh, if only she would look at me like that, with those ice-cold eyes. Teresa, my love.
If she lets idiots like him run around loose, then I'm sure she's not as infallible as he thinks she is.
Apparently a man named Dial was smuggling goods in secret and the entire crew is getting blamed for it. Teresa's not going to let up until Dial is captured. Dial has apparently been turned into a lizard demon and has killed many soldiers who have tried to capture him. Velvet agrees to find him and tells the men that they'll fix her ship and find her a navigator as the reward. I want to take some time and talk about the dungeons in this game. They have been a bit tedious so far, but this is kind of the case in most RPGs, so I can't say that I'm surprised. I do like the character switching. I remember having this option in Final Fantasy 15, but the characters would kind of warp over to you and there was always a delay before you could move again. I was worried that that would be the case in this game, but it isn't. Swapping characters feels very seamless. You hold the trigger, you press the D-pad, and boom, you're the other guy. You even teleport over to his position. It's that simple. I'm not sure how well this actually works when you have a full party, however, since the only other character I've gotten to play as has been Rokuro, which, by the way, the only reason he waits so long to fight is because he doesn't have a weapon. But weapons, what about the big-ass sword on his back? Apparently he loves that thing so much he doesn't want to use it during battle.
We should look for some weapons too, if I'm to be any use in a fight.
You're still wearing one.
Nope, not an option.
He opts for 2 knives instead, which, okay, Alright, fine. At this point, I also learned a little bit about enemy weaknesses. Each art has its own element to it, and certain enemies are weak to certain elements. For example, fire works really well on beast types, and wind arts work really well on flying enemies. The list goes on. Combo attacks can be performed using any of the 4 main buttons on your controller. If you don't want to mash X or A, you can mash any of the other 3 buttons above it. The creativity comes in when you assign different arts to different buttons. Each button combo is made up of 4 arts, and you can control how often and in what order they show up in. For example, if you want to create a combo with nothing but Searing Edge because you know the enemy is weak to fire, you can do this. If you want a combo that starts neutral and then follows up with a wind attack and then a fire type attack for the finisher because the enemy is weak to both of those, you can do that. They even let you change up your arts in the middle of a fight. If you realize you walked in with the wrong combo setup, you can just pause the game, fix what you need to, and get right back to the pummeling. Each character also has a special move called a Break Soul, which I guess is this game's version of an overdrive or a limit break. You have to have at least 3 souls to use one, but it allows you to deal a lot of damage in a little bit of time. So far, I'm only familiar with Velvet's. She unsheathes her left arm and deals damage at the cost of HP. Her attacks become more powerful the lower her HP gets, and the finisher depends on what arts you're currently using. Half the time it's been this whirlwind of slashes, and other times it's been this giant energy ball. I haven't had to think too hard about the combat so far. I'm playing on like medium difficulty, and I've pretty much just mashed my way through most of the game so far. And I've just used the break souls when there's a lot of enemies and I can't be bothered to fight them normally. Anyway, back to the story. Maggie Lou wanders off, leaving Velvet and Rokuro to go look for Dial. They find him, and Dial says that it wasn't just him that was responsible for the smuggling. The entire crew was in on it, and they simply just used him as a scapegoat when they got caught. This is why they were so anxious to know if Dial had been captured yet. They were hoping someone would hurry up and deal with him so they could sweep the whole thing under the rug. Velvet cuts off Dial's tail and says she plans to take it back to the town so everyone would believe that he's dead. In exchange for basically sparing him, Dial would be required to fix their ship. And this is as far as I've gotten. The game has been a pleasant surprise so far. The combat has been a bit repetitive, but I do like the story. And as I said before, I like how the heroes in this game aren't really heroes. I'll definitely consider doing a full review and discussion of the game when I finish it.